Welcome back to Second Chance Histories, where we explore the extraordinary moments that reveal how deeply interconnected our lives truly are, and how sometimes our greatest impact on others remains invisible to us until the most unexpected circumstances bring it to light. Today's story takes us into the mind of 24-year-old Tyler Brooks, a young man who found himself suspended between life and death after a devastating motorcycle accident. As Tyler's consciousness drifted through what he believed were fragments of his own life, he discovered something that would challenge everything he thought he knew about memory, connection, and the profound ways we touch each other's lives without ever realizing it. This is the story of Moments That Heal, where a young man's near-death experience revealed that the most meaningful moments of his life weren't actually his own memories at all. They were the memories of people whose lives he had unknowingly transformed through simple acts of kindness he had completely forgotten. The young man who lived without looking back. Tyler Michael Brooks was the kind of 24-year-old who moved through life with focused intensity, always looking ahead to the next goal, the next achievement, the next milestone. As a graduate student in engineering at Colorado State University, Tyler approached life like a series of problems to be solved efficiently and pragmatically. Tyler wasn't unkind, but he wasn't particularly reflective either. He helped people when it was convenient, said please and thank you because he had been raised properly, and generally tried to be a decent human being. But he rarely lingered on interactions with others, rarely wondered about the lasting impact of his choices, and almost never looked backward at the path he had traveled. His friends would have described Tyler as reliable, intelligent, and focused, but perhaps lacking in emotional depth or awareness of how his presence affected others. Tyler himself would have agreed with that assessment. He saw emotional sensitivity as inefficient and believed that dwelling on past interactions was a waste of time that could be better spent moving forward. Tyler's a good guy, his roommate Jason often said, but he's like a friendly robot sometimes. He does the right thing, but I don't think he really understands why it matters to people. Tyler's approach to life had served him well academically and professionally. He maintained excellent grades, held leadership positions in student organizations, and had already secured a prestigious internship for the following summer. He was proud of his accomplishments and confident in his trajectory toward a successful career in engineering. But Tyler's forward-focused approach to life also meant that he rarely reflected on the moments when his actions had impacted others. He helped classmates with difficult assignments and forgot about it immediately. He volunteered at community events because it looked good on his resume, not because he was particularly invested in the causes. He was polite to service workers, helpful to strangers in minor emergencies, and generally considerate in his daily interactions. But he never thought much about these moments after they passed. This pattern of moving quickly past meaningful interactions would prove significant in ways Tyler could never have anticipated. On a crisp October morning in 2019, Tyler was riding his motorcycle to campus when a distracted driver ran a red light and collided with him at full speed. The impact threw Tyler nearly 30 feet from his bike, and he landed on the asphalt with multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and severe head trauma. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but Tyler's condition was critical. He was airlifted to University Hospital in Denver, where trauma surgeons worked for 6 hours to stabilize his injuries. The medical team managed to save his life, but Tyler remained in a coma for 8 days while his brain recovered from the traumatic impact. Dr. Michael Chen, Tyler's neurosurgeon, explained to Tyler's parents that while the surgery had been successful, the extent of any cognitive damage wouldn't be known until Tyler regained consciousness. The brain injury was severe, Dr. Chen told Tyler's family. We've done everything we can medically. Now we have to wait and see how his brain heals. Some patients experience memory loss, personality changes, or other cognitive effects. Others recover completely. Each case is different. Tyler's parents, David and Patricia Brooks, maintained a bedside vigil, taking turns reading to their unconscious son, playing his favorite music, and talking to him about family memories and future plans, hoping that somewhere in his unconscious mind, Tyler could hear them and find his way back. But what Tyler was experiencing during those 8 days bore no resemblance to the peaceful recovery his family hoped he was having. On the second day of his coma, Tyler became aware of consciousness returning, but not in the way he expected. Instead of waking up in a hospital bed, he found himself experiencing vivid, intensely emotional scenes that felt like memories but seemed strangely unfamiliar. The first scene Tyler experienced was of himself as a freshman in college, helping an elderly woman carry groceries to her car during a rainstorm. But as Tyler observed this memory, something felt wrong. The emotional content was far more intense than Tyler remembered feeling during what it seemed like a routine act of politeness. In this enhanced version of the memory, Tyler could feel the woman's overwhelming gratitude, her relief at not having to struggle with heavy bags in the rain, and most significantly, her restoration of faith in young people's kindness after a series of disappointing encounters with rude or indifferent students. This young man, the elderly woman was thinking in the memory, reminds me that there are still good people in the world. Maybe I was wrong to think that all young people today are selfish. Tyler was confused by this perspective. He didn't remember the encounter being particularly meaningful, and he certainly didn't remember the woman expressing such profound gratitude. But the memory felt completely real and was filled with emotional details that were far more vivid than his typical recollections. The second memory fragment was even more perplexing. Tyler saw himself tutoring a struggling chemistry student during his sophomore year, but again, the emotional content was much more intense than he remembered experiencing or witnessing at the time. In this version of the memory, Tyler could feel the student's desperation about failing chemistry and potentially losing his scholarship. He could sense the student's amazement and relief as Tyler's patient explanations finally helped the concepts click into place. Most remarkably, Tyler could feel the student's gratitude not just for the academic help, but for Tyler's respectful, non-condescending approach to tutoring. "Tyler doesn't make me feel stupid," the student was thinking. "He actually listens to my questions and helps me understand instead of just showing off how smart he is." Tyler was bewildered. He remembered tutoring several students during college, but he had never perceived these interactions as particularly meaningful or emotional. Yet these memory fragments suggested that his help had been profoundly significant to the people he had assisted. Over what felt like days in his altered consciousness, Tyler experienced dozens of similar memory fragments. Each one featured Tyler performing what he had considered routine acts of helpfulness or politeness, but from the perspective of someone whose life had been meaningfully impacted by these interactions. He witnessed himself listening patiently to a homesick freshman who was considering dropping out of school. In Tyler's original memory, this had been a brief conversation in the dorm lobby. But in this enhanced version, Tyler could feel the freshman's desperation and loneliness, and the profound relief he experienced when Tyler took the time to really listen to his concerns and offer practical suggestions for adjusting to college life. "Nobody else has bothered to really listen to me since I got here," the freshman was thinking. "Tyler actually cares about helping me figure this out, instead of just telling me to tough it out." Tyler experienced a memory of helping a disabled classmate navigate campus during a snowstorm, carrying the student's books and walking slowly to accommodate his mobility challenges. Tyler had forgotten this interaction entirely, but in this enhanced memory, he could feel the student's gratitude for Tyler's natural, respectful helpfulness. "Most people either ignore me or make a big show of helping me," the student was thinking. "Tyler just helps naturally, without making it weird or condescending." There was a memory of Tyler volunteering at a community food distribution event, working efficiently to organize supplies and help families. Tyler had participated because it was required for a class, but in this enhanced version, he could feel the gratitude of families who were struggling financially and the relief they experienced when Tyler treated them with dignity rather than pity. That young volunteer, one mother was thinking. He looks at my children with kindness instead of judgment. He makes me feel like a person instead of a charity case. As these enhanced memories continued, Tyler became increasingly confused about what he was experiencing. The events were definitely from his life. He recognized the locations, the approximate timeframes, and many of the details. But the emotional content and significance seemed to belong to someone else's experience of these same events. Tyler began to wonder if the head injury was causing him to imagine enhanced versions of routine interactions. Perhaps his brain was creating meaning and emotional significance that hadn't actually existed in the original moments. But the memories felt completely authentic. Tyler could recall specific details about conversations, physical environments, and even weather conditions that matched his factual recollections. It was only the emotional significance and the perspective that seemed different. The most perplexing aspect was that in many of these memories, Tyler could access thoughts and feelings that clearly weren't his own. He was somehow experiencing these interactions from the perspectives of the people he had helped, feeling their gratitude, relief, and restored hope in ways he had never perceived during the actual events. One particularly vivid memory involved Tyler giving directions to a lost tourist family during his junior year. Tyler barely remembered the interaction, which had lasted perhaps 2 minutes. But in this enhanced version, he could feel the family's stress about being lost in an unfamiliar city. Their relief when Tyler not only gave clear directions but walked them to their destination to make sure they found it safely. "This young man went out of his way to help us," the father was thinking. "We were starting to think Americans were unfriendly, but Tyler restored our faith in this country's hospitality." Tyler was experiencing emotions and perspectives that were clearly not his own, yet they felt completely real and authentic. On what felt like the 4th day of these memory experiences, Tyler began to notice patterns that would eventually lead him to understand what was really happening to him. First, he realized that he was experiencing far more memories than he actually had. Tyler had lived a relatively straightforward 24 years, but he was witnessing hundreds of meaningful interactions with different people across various settings and time periods. Second, many of these memories involved people he couldn't identify or specific situations he couldn't recall, despite the fact that he appeared to be the central figure in each scene. Third, and most significantly, Tyler began to recognize that some of these memories were happening in locations where he had never been, or involved him helping with problems he had never encountered. In one memory, Tyler was helping an elderly man change a flat tire on a highway Tyler had never traveled. In another, he was volunteering at a homeless shelter in a city Tyler had never visited. Yet, in each case, the person he was helping experienced profound gratitude for Tyler's compassionate assistance. Tyler began to suspect that these weren't actually his memories at all, but somehow he was experiencing other people's memories of being helped by someone who resembled him or reminded them of him. But this explanation didn't make sense either. In each memory, Tyler could clearly see his own face, recognize his own voice, and recall his own mannerisms and patterns of speech. These definitely appeared to be memories of him specifically, not of people who simply resembled him. The breakthrough in Tyler's understanding came when he experienced a memory that was impossible to dismiss or explain away. In this memory fragment, Tyler was visiting his grandmother in her nursing home, sitting patiently while she told him stories about her childhood. Tyler could feel his grandmother's joy at having a grandchild who genuinely listened to her reminiscences, her gratitude for his regular visits, and her pride in the kind, attentive young man he had become. But Tyler's grandmother had died when he was 12 years old, and he had never visited her in a nursing home. His grandmother had lived independently until her death and had never required institutional care. This memory was impossible according to Tyler's actual life history, yet it felt completely authentic and was filled with the same emotional depth and significance as all the other memories he had been experiencing. As Tyler contemplated this impossible memory, a stunning realization began to form. What if these weren't his memories at all? What if he was somehow experiencing the memories of people who had been helped by someone else? Someone whose kindness had been so meaningful to them that they remembered the helper as looking like Tyler, sounding like Tyler, or embodying the kind of person they imagined Tyler to be. The idea seemed impossible, but it was the only explanation that accounted for the memory of visiting a grandmother who had never lived in a nursing home, helping people in cities he had never visited, and experiencing emotions and perspectives that were clearly not his own. As Tyler's understanding of these memory fragments deepened, he began to grasp something profound about the nature of human connection and the lasting impact of compassionate actions. Every act of kindness he witnessed in these memories, whether performed by him or by others, had created lasting positive change in someone's life. The elderly woman whose groceries he had carried during the rainstorm had been restored to faith in young people's goodness. The struggling chemistry student he had tutored had gone on to succeed academically and had begun tutoring other students himself. The homesick freshman he had listened to had stayed in school and eventually became a counselor who helped other struggling students. Tyler realized that kindness created ripple effects that extended far beyond the immediate moment of help. Each compassionate action had inspired the recipient to be more hopeful, more trusting, and more likely to help others in turn. But perhaps most significantly, Tyler understood that the people who remembered being helped had been so impacted by the experience that they carried idealized memories of their helpers for years afterward. The memory of receiving compassion had become a source of ongoing comfort and hope in their lives. When someone helps you during a moment of real need, Tyler realized, you don't just remember what they did, you remember who they were to you in that moment. They become a symbol of goodness in the world, and that symbol stays with you and gives you strength. As this realization developed, Tyler began to experience the memory fragments differently. Instead of trying to reconcile them with his own life history, he began to understand them as windows into other people's experiences of being helped, supported, and treated with kindness. Each memory represented someone's meaningful encounter with compassion, sometimes from Tyler himself, sometimes from other people whose kindness had been so impactful that the recipient remembered the helper in idealized terms that happened to match Tyler's appearance and demeanor. In some cases, Tyler recognized that he actually had performed the helpful action depicted in the memory, but the recipient's experience of that help had been far more meaningful than Tyler had realized at the time. In other cases, Tyler understood that someone else entirely had provided the help, but the recipient's memory of that assistance had somehow become associated with Tyler's image, perhaps because Tyler represented their ideal of what a kind, helpful young person should be like. Most remarkably, Tyler began to understand that he was experiencing a collective memory of kindness. Dozens of people's recollections of meaningful help they had received, all somehow connected through his consciousness as he lay suspended between life and death. On the 8th day of his coma, Tyler began to drift back toward normal consciousness. But instead of the gradual, peaceful awakening his family hoped for, Tyler's return was accompanied by an overwhelming sense of responsibility and purpose that he had never experienced before. Tyler had spent his entire life moving through interactions without considering their lasting impact. But his coma experience had shown him that every act of kindness, no matter how small or routine it seemed, had the potential to create lasting positive change in someone's life. More than that, Tyler had learned that being helpful and compassionate wasn't just about the immediate benefit to the person being helped. It was about becoming someone whose memory could provide comfort and hope to others for years to come. When Tyler finally opened his eyes in the hospital room, his first words to his parents were not about his physical condition or his memory of the accident, but about his need to understand how his actions affected other people. "Mom, Dad," Tyler said weakly, "I need to ask you something. Do you remember times when I helped people? But I didn't seem to realize how much it meant to them." His parents were amazed by the question. Tyler had never shown much interest in the emotional impact of his interactions with others. "Tyler," his mother Patricia said carefully, "you've always been helpful and polite, but you usually moved on to the next thing without thinking much about how people responded to your help. Why are you asking?" Tyler tried to explain his experience during the coma, describing the vivid memory fragments and his realization that acts of kindness create lasting positive impact even when the helper isn't aware of it. Tyler's recovery from his physical injuries was remarkably swift, but the psychological and emotional changes brought about by his coma experience would prove to be permanent and profound. The young man who had previously moved through life focused only on forward progress now became deeply interested in the quality and impact of his interactions with others. Tyler began paying attention to how people responded to his help, listening for the emotional significance of what might seem like routine interactions, and deliberately trying to provide the kind of compassionate assistance that creates lasting positive memories. "It's like Tyler became emotionally intelligent overnight," his roommate Jason observed. "Before the accident, he was helpful but kind of mechanical about it. Now he actually sees people and understands what they need." Tyler's approach to his academic work also changed dramatically. Instead of pursuing engineering purely for personal achievement and financial success, Tyler became interested in projects that would directly benefit communities and individuals. He shifted his focus toward humanitarian engineering applications and began volunteering with organizations that use technology to solve social problems. But perhaps most significantly, Tyler began actively seeking opportunities to create the kind of meaningful helping experiences he had witnessed during his coma. Tyler started tutoring struggling students again, but now he approached each session with awareness that his patience and encouragement might be creating lasting positive impact on the students' confidence and academic trajectory. He volunteered regularly at community organizations, understanding that his respectful, dignified approach to helping people might become a cherished memory that provided ongoing comfort and hope. As Tyler's new approach to life developed, the people around him began to notice remarkable changes not just in Tyler himself, but in the effect he had on others. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Tyler's academic advisor, noticed that students Tyler worked with showed unusual improvement, not just in their academic performance, but in their overall confidence and engagement with school. Tyler has developed this ability to help people in ways that seem to transform their entire outlook. Dr. Martinez observed, "Students who work with him don't just get better grades. They start believing in themselves and helping other students too." Tyler's volunteer supervisor at the community center, Maria Rodriguez, saw similar effects. "Tyler has this gift for making people feel seen and valued," Maria said. "Families who receive help from Tyler often comment that he made them feel dignified and respected during a difficult time. That kind of emotional support is sometimes more valuable than the practical assistance." Tyler began documenting the stories of people he helped, not to showcase his own good deeds, but to better understand how compassionate assistance affected recipients' lives over time. He discovered that meaningful help often inspired people to help others, creating expanding networks of kindness that extended far beyond the original interaction. When you help someone in a way that restores their faith in human goodness, Tyler learned, they become more likely to be kind to other people. Compassion is contagious, but only when it's genuine and respectful. Tyler's interest in the lasting impact of kindness led him to propose a research project for his senior thesis, studying the long-term psychological effects of receiving meaningful help during moments of crisis or need. Working with the psychology department, Tyler interviewed dozens of people about memorable experiences of receiving assistance from others. The patterns he discovered aligned remarkably with what he had experienced during his coma. People consistently reported that receiving help during difficult moments had lasting positive effects on their mental health, their trust in others, and their willingness to help other people. But the most significant factor wasn't the practical value of the assistance. It was whether the helper had treated them with dignity, respect, and genuine care. What matters most, Tyler wrote in his research summary, isn't how much help you provide, but how you provide it. When people feel truly seen and valued by someone who helps them, that experience becomes a permanent source of strength and hope in their lives. Tyler's research revealed that people often carried idealized memories of meaningful helpers for decades, and these memories served as reminders that goodness exists in the world even during difficult times. The most powerful thing you can give someone, Tyler concluded, isn't just solution to their immediate problem. It's the experience of being cared about by another human being. That experience becomes part of who they are. Tyler's research attracted the attention of Dr. Patricia Chun, a neuroscientist at the University of Colorado who studied the relationship between social connections and brain function. Dr. Chun was particularly interested in Tyler's description of his coma experience and his subsequent transformation in how he approached helping others. Tyler's case represents a fascinating example of how near-death experiences can sometimes lead to enhanced empathy and social awareness. Dr. Chen explained, whether the memory fragments Tyler experienced were neurological phenomena or something else entirely, the result was a dramatic increase in his ability to understand and respond to other people's emotional needs. Dr. Chen's brain scans of Tyler showed increased activity in regions associated with empathy and social cognition compared to baseline scans taken during his recovery. Tyler's brain appears to have been rewired by his experience, Dr. Chen noted. The areas responsible for understanding other people's emotions and motivations are significantly more active than they were before his accident. The research suggested that Tyler's enhanced ability to create meaningful helping experiences might have a neurological basis developed during his coma experience. 5 years after his accident, Tyler Brooks had become a nationally recognized expert in what he called dignity-centered helping, approaches to assistance that prioritize the recipient's emotional well-being and sense of self-worth. Tyler had founded a nonprofit organization that trained volunteers to provide help in ways that create lasting positive impact rather than just addressing immediate needs. The program was implemented in homeless shelters, food banks, disaster relief organizations, and community service programs across the country. Tyler's approach revolutionizes how we think about helping people, said Dr. Maria Santos, who studied Tyler's methods for the American Journal of Community Psychology. Traditional charity often focuses on efficiency and meeting basic needs. Tyler's model focuses on creating interactions that restore people's faith in human goodness and their own worth. The organization's training programs taught volunteers to listen actively, treat recipients as individuals rather than cases, and provide help in ways that preserved dignity and promoted empowerment rather than dependence. Tyler's research had documented over 300 cases where his dignity-centered approach had not only solved immediate problems but had inspired recipients to help others, creating expanding networks of kindness that continued to grow years after the original interactions. Tyler never fully understood exactly what had happened during his 8-day coma experience. Medical professionals couldn't explain how he had accessed such detailed perspectives on other people's experiences of receiving help, or why those experiences had been presented to him in the form of his own memories. I don't know if I was experiencing real memories from other people, or if my brain was creating symbolic representations of the impact that kindness can have, Tyler reflected during a conference presentation. What I know is that the experience taught me something profound about the lasting power of compassionate assistance. Tyler's story had inspired research into the psychological mechanisms of empathy and the long-term effects of near-death experiences on social behavior. Several universities had begun studying whether similar empathy enhancement could be achieved through other means. But for Tyler, the scientific explanations were less important than the practical implications of what he had learned. Whether my experience was neurological, spiritual, or something else entirely, Tyler said, It showed me that every interaction we have with another person is an opportunity to create lasting positive change. The question isn't whether we can help, it's whether we can help in ways that truly heal. Today, Tyler Brooks is 29 years old and serves as the executive director of the Dignity First Foundation, which has trained over 5,000 volunteers in compassionate helping techniques. His approach to assistance has been adopted by organizations nationwide and has influenced policy discussions about how social services should be delivered. Tyler's near-death experience and the mysterious memory fragments he witnessed continue to shape his understanding of human connection and the power of kindness to create lasting change. I learned that when you help someone in a way that honors their humanity, Tyler says, you don't just solve their immediate problem, you become part of their story of hope. Years later, when they're facing new challenges, they'll remember that someone once cared enough to help them with dignity and respect. That memory becomes a source of strength that helps them keep going. Tyler's story reminds us that the moments when we choose to help others with genuine care and respect have the power to heal not just immediate problems, but to restore faith in human goodness that can last a lifetime. The fragments Tyler witnessed during his coma, whether they were actual memories, neurological phenomena, or something beyond scientific explanation, revealed a profound truth. Every act of kindness creates ripples that extend far beyond our awareness, touching lives in ways we may never know but that make all the difference in the world. In a society that often focuses on efficiency and measurable outcomes, Tyler's experience proves that the most powerful helping happens when we remember that the person receiving assistance is a human being whose dignity, hope, and faith in others can be either restored or diminished by how we choose to provide our help. The moments that heal aren't just the ones that solve problems. They're the ones that remind people they are valued, respected, and worthy of care. And sometimes, those moments become so meaningful that they transcend individual memory to become part of the collective human experience of hope and connection. Tyler's fragments weren't just his own memories. They were humanity's memories of being helped, cared for, and treated with dignity. And in experiencing those memories, Tyler learned to create new ones that will provide comfort and hope to others for years to come.